All right. Good morning, everybody. Friday is here. You've made it to the end of the week. Congratulations. Okay. Let's get cracking for the morning. We've got a busy day ahead of us. We've got some exciting guests, and we've got lots to talk about today. As always, I mean, is there ever a morning where you get here and you go, I don't know what we're going to talk about today? Not yet. If that happens, then you know what? We got to stop the show. That's all. Okay, we're on the 21st of October already. So before you know it, we're going to be in the middle of the Christmas season, and we're going to be listening to carols in the shops and all of that stuff. So better get ready. It's happening. You want it or you don't. All right, lots of things to get into today. Ben will be joining us at 6:30, as is the usual course of action for Friday. And we will be discussing lots of things. He's got plenty to talk about, including something which I saw for the first time this week, paddle, which Ben's gone all in on. It's almost like, what would you call it? It's like tennis, but on a much, much smaller court. I think that's what you'd probably describe it as. Apparently, it's the most popular thing in the whole world at the moment. So it's not just Ben, it's lots of people. And we're going to be speaking to someone called Elise Chizik. And she is a famous actor, writer, poet, and songwriter from the United States who has made her name. And I mean, you got to see this girl on TikTok to know what I'm talking about. But she's really cool. She's made her name by basically trying to get Trevor Noah to fall in love with her on social media. Now, normally, that kind of introduction would make me go, ugh, I want to talk to that girl, but she is awesome. And I'll explain in a little while. She's really funny. She's really clever. She's really smart. And actually, just watching her videos, I was like, what a cool girl. Like, Trevor Noah is the most boring bastard in the world if he doesn't at least respond to this. So far, he hasn't, but we will see. Anything is possible. We also have our new series, which I don't know if you know, the series that we spoke about on Wednesday morning with Prof. Christopher Paul Szabo, who is our live-in psychiatrist, and it's called Beyond Madness. Now we're on to season 3, and if you have missed the first 2 episodes of season 3 of Beyond Madness, you need to get into it. In the first episode, you could find out how traditional healers have been involved in the lives of many South Africans outside of the formal medical setting. And this week's episode looks at the physical and psychological consequences of abortion. So, as I discussed with the prof, they're not going shy, you know? There's no one sitting around going, oh, I wonder what should we avoid this topic or should we get into it? They go straight for the jugular. Basically, hardcore 24/7 with Prof. Szabo. Oh, propaganda says that paddle is a mixture of tennis and table tennis. I haven't actually. Okay, so when I say I saw it on Wednesday, I saw the courts. I saw people, buggering around on the courts. I didn't see them playing it professionally, if you can even play it professionally. But if you know more about this than I do, then hang on, because Ben will be correcting me where I'm wrong. We'll speak about that. Aneska says, I really enjoyed your fireside chat with Marnus. Very insightful. I'd love to make the world my home. On Wednesday evening, I spoke to Marnus Brodrake, he was on Shark Tank, South Africa, for a while as a judge or as a businessman. Basically, Shark Tank is like you're looking for business deals. And Marnus was one of those guys. And he's also launched several successful businesses, including the Bean Counter, which is basically like an accounting package for small businesses. Tremendously successful business. He's spun that out into a number of other businesses, which he's been involved in, managed, or has been running for the last 6 years or so. And he actually has moved to Barcelona and decided to start a new business, which he's doing in the form of an NFT. Only 888 members can join, and it's going to be like a plant medicine type community. Now, it sounds wacky, but it's actually really cool. And the way he describes it's much better than anything I could do to describe it. But basically, the idea here is that he did a couple of like mushroom retreats, and he decided this is something that more people in the world should do. And a lot of people are very nervous about mushrooms. I mean, a lot of people are unlikely to do this stuff because they think, oh, drugs and psychedelics and all that stuff, and it makes people very nervous. But he found it to be tremendously therapeutic, helpful, evolutionary, revolutionary, whatever you want to call it. And he basically he didn't. I mean, I don't think he's done like 10 of these things, but he's done a few. And he says it's changed his whole outlook on the world, which I think is very interesting because, so many of us go through our lives doing the same thing over and over again. We never change anything. Therefore, we expect things to change. But obviously, if you're doing the same thing every day, you're living in the same place, you're changing nothing. How do you expect anything to get better? And he said the effect on him has been profound. He's discovered, layers of understanding and compassion and, general kind of lucidity and logic and sense in things that perhaps he didn't before. And he's now going to launch a business in that. So I spoke to him on Wednesday. So it was very, very good. And thank you for the comment. Sharon says, morning, I started watching yesterday's Cliff Central and Aaron actually thought it was Thursday for a second. It was Thursday yesterday. It was at the top of my YouTube feed where the love one usually is. What? What are you talking about? Sharon, live one. Oh, right. Okay, so Sharon was watching yesterday's show instead of this morning. Okay, got you. Sharon, you need to speak clearly. Makes sense. Shrooms are the way of the future, says Ruth. Heard so many positive things for the future. Well, I'm very happy for you. Oh, this is hugely important. And I actually put this up on my Instagram yesterday. And I'm glad that Corona's Boring has brought it up this morning. You remember I said that Liz Truss, the Prime Minister of the UK, that she was up against a lettuce. And they actually just they put a lettuce from Tesco's on a website, and they said, all right, whichever one lasts longer, that's the winner. Everybody thought it was, very funny, hilarious. You've got to see this to believe it. Apparently the lettuce won. Liz Truss is out as Prime Minister. Let me just show you this. And there are a couple of really funny memes going on as well. So here, let me just put the picture up here. You'll see what I'm talking about. So people are saying Liz lettuce. They're talking about ha, ha, ha. Congratulations to the new Prime Minister and iceberg lettuce. People are just merciless. But yeah, she lasted, what, a month and a half? I think that's all. What a disaster. And Pumi and I were just talking about this yesterday. And this is a pretty funny meme. Let me show you this quickly. Here we go. So there's the Queen. And there's Liz Truss. And Liz Truss looks at the Queen. It was like the day before she died. And Liz Truss is like, you don't look like you're going to last very long. And the Queen goes, neither do you, which is hilarious. And then the actual lettuce, let me just find a picture of that for you quickly. Hold on. Just check this out. Hold on. Oh, by the way, Ord Laws contacted me yesterday, and he will be joining us probably in the next week or two. So for those people who are fans of gourds, he will be part of the show very, very soon. And you can relax and get comfortable. He will be here before you know it. Just let me show you this quickly. Here's the lettuce. Okay, so this is the actual website that compared Liz Truss and the lettuce, and they said, who's going to last longer? And there it is. It still looks pretty good. The lettuce is expected to make a statement later. This is from the website. And I just think this is so cruel, but it's so hilarious. So well done to the lettuce, and sorry to see you go. Bye-bye, Liz. It's done. Shrooms are good for mental health, says Neil. I heard so. And I also hear it's going to be, what is it, like they're using it. In fact, Prof. Zabo said on Wednesday that they're using it in PTSD treatment, and they're using it to do like antidepressive treatment as well. So there's a lot going on. Carl says UK loses 2 lizards in as many months. Oh, that's horrendous. Silicide says traffic cops are now getting out of hand. Yesterday they told me to e-wallet them if I don't have cash on hand. By the way, that I've heard quite a lot. So I've heard that apparently the cops will say, if you can't pay them in cash, e-wallet's fine. In fact, David Carr was joking about that the other night when I was at that dinner. So I don't doubt that for a second. Congo Chris says 45 days. There we go. 45 days in office. Let me just see what else is happening here. Michael says, Gareth, they are making a stronger COVID. The idiots, check it out by Russell Brand. Russell Brand has started to make a lot more sense than so many people on mainstream media. Like this guy, I used to think he was a bit of a joke. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, I thought you can't take him seriously. Probably somewhere in the last 2 years, Russell Brand became more sensible and started sounding more intelligent than about 90% of the people who I've been following on traditional media. So from now on, I believe Russell Brand, and I think he's really sensible. He makes a lot of very interesting points about everything from COVID to this new world order thing. Which, if I even say it, I start thinking, "Ooh, you're sounding like a conspiracy theory." What do you call them? A conspiracy theorist, but a conspirator maybe. But this guy is he first of all has a great way with words. He's smart. He's lucid. But he's friendly, he's fun, and he has a great sense of humor. Obviously, that's where he comes from in terms of his career. So Russell Brand making more sense than anyone else. Very, very good. By the way, just on the subject of psilocybin, which we've discussed at length already this morning, you can go check out Beyond Madness for an episode on that and a whole lot more. It is on cliffcentral.com. It's brought to you by Adcock Ingram OTC, the sponsors of Brave. That is Beyond Madness. Apparently, a woman was attacked by a hippo during load shedding. So I'm wondering if that means that she can sue Eskom. Because surely you can say, well, Eskom is partly responsible for this. Here's the story. It didn't happen in the middle of a national nature reserve. It was in St. Lucia. A Belito woman had to be airlifted to hospital in a critical condition after she was attacked by a hippo in St. Lucia on Wednesday evening. According to Netcare 911, the woman, who was believed to be in her 50s, had been on holiday with her family when the incident took place. Reports indicate that she and her family were in the swimming pool. How's that? You're like, I'm going to hop in the pool, have a nice time. It was at night, but, can you imagine anything more normal during a holiday than getting to the pool? And she and her 2 children apparently got out of the swimming pool and headed back towards their accommodation. And while they were walking there was a hippo and its baby, which is usually a very, very bad sign. Everybody knows this statistic, but hippos are responsible for more human deaths than any other animal in Africa except for the malaria mosquito. So this woman was apparently attacked by this hippo. It tried to protect the baby, charged at the woman. She was found in a critical condition and had to be airlifted to hospital, which you can imagine is awful. Luckily, the kids escaped with no injuries. In a separate incident on Wednesday, a 25-year-old mother and her toddler were trampled by a giraffe in Hluhluwe, which is in northern KZN. The 16-month-old died on arrival at the doctor's room while the mother was still in a critical condition. This is horrible, horrible stuff. You've got to be so careful. I mean, no matter where you are or what you do, not good to be out there with wild animals when you're in their territory. They are in charge. You can see that. I'm surprised, says Nico, that there are so few deaths by hippo at St. Lucia. They're everywhere there. Yeah, I've heard that the problem is, and correct me where I'm wrong here, Nico, and everybody else. I've heard that if you get between a hippo and the water, they get very nervous and upset and pissed off. And if you are between it and its child, obviously its baby, then you have a problem. Russell Brand knows more and is cleverer than most people think, says Peter. He does make sense. Yeah. And I'll admit, which, don't like to admit that I was so wrong for so long, but I thought he was a bit of an idiot before. So I've got you. You're exactly right, Peter. Carl says, did you know that mosquito gives you malaria by mistake? It accidentally leaves malaria behind while it's pulling out. That sounds vaguely sexual, but you're right. It's actually I think it's a bacterium, malaria, and it lives in the saliva of the mosquito, and that's how it's passed around. But the mosquito is not going around installing malaria in people, so 100% correct. That's from Carl. Square Peg says, people I know got ripped off when they sold their game station. The guy rocked up and offered to pay with an e-wallet. He left with the game and promptly reversed the payment. False number plates too. How do you reverse an e-wallet? Can you do that? Because I didn't know you could do that. By the way, Nico, who is a game ranger, says, I've been uncomfortable with a male giraffe protecting his cow and calf. Just respect all wildlife, no matter how friendly they look. Yeah. Nico is correct. Obviously, he knows more about this than I do. But, I just think any animal with young is probably more dangerous than any animal without. They're obviously trying to protect their kids. They see you as a threat. Usually, humans represent some kind of threat to animals, so I'm not surprised. Don't sweat it, Gareth. People used to think Trump was crazy too. Well, Canthan on... I love when Canthan comes in on the burning platform because he drops these clangers. And yesterday he said to Pumi and I on the burning platform, he was like, the best president America had in the last, what did he say, 40 years? And we kind of just breezed past it. But he may actually be right statistically. I mean, the economy was booming. He had unemployment down at record levels. The dollar was doing very well, but the stock exchange was doing extremely well. Market prices were sky high. There was peace. There were no wars started under Donald Trump. And although everybody in the mainstream media has been telling us that he's the worst person that has ever lived, it turns out that if you look back with just a little bit of sobriety, you have to judge his term of office by its merits, not by his mean tweets or his orange hair or, the things that he supposed to have done in the locker room with like grabbing them by the pussy or any of that stuff. It turns out that Donald Trump presided over a fairly successful 4 years by almost anyone's estimation in American history. So, yes, you are right, parallel parking. Congo Chris says, curse you, Gareth. All year, not one Mozzie. And then you mentioned it on your show, and I had 3 in my room that night. Funnily enough, I heard one last night. And I was like, oh, God. Yeah, Simpiwe and I were talking about this on Wednesday. Sorry. Someone had to talk about it, and I promise you that's not why they came. Tracy says you could also argue that Trump inherited all of that from the previous administration. No, you can't, because it turns out that Bill Clinton inherited a lot of his successes, according to Republicans, from Ronald Reagan. George W. Bush inherited much of his success from Bill Clinton, and so on. You can play this game ad infinitum. The fact is, you have to judge that 4-year term by its own merits. And if he had advantages brought to him by the Obama administration, you have to explain what those are, Tracy. You can't just go, oh, well, we don't like him, so we'll give all the credit for the good things to the previous administration, and we will blame whichever things we don't like on him. I mean, you have to list them, and then we can go through them and debunk that fairly quickly. Petrol was under $2 a gallon under Trump, says Parallel Parking. Yeah, exactly. Michael says, I used to do game capture, and the funnest animal to catch was a giraffe. Stressful but fun. How do you capture a giraffe? I mean, those things are so... Have you seen how a giraffe walks? It lopes. And they run. They're pretty fast when they run, but they look ridiculous. They almost look like those, those things at the garage that they blow air up, and then they go like this. They've kind of got their arms up in the air, and they're, those little sort of tassels are blowing in the air and that stuff. Giraffes are ridiculous looking animals. I don't know how you capture one, but maybe you know. Michael says he used to do it. So what do? You put it in a net? Do you dart them and then wait for them to fall down? Congo Chris points out, and I think this is a good point. He says Trump said that it is dangerous for Germany and England to rely on Russian oil and gas. Now, look, the worst part about that is that, of course, you're absolutely right, Congo Chris, but he was at a NATO meeting, and he said this, and the Germans started laughing. You can hear them audibly. In fact, you can look it up on the internet. You'll find the clip. And the Germans start going, ha, 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 in the background. And look at them now. Dependent on Russian oil, cut off, and expecting a very cold winter. So I wonder how that's going to go. Seems like Russell Brand has over 6 million viewers. Is that true? Possibly. It's totally possible. Wouldn't put it past Russell or anyone else. That's very, new media, like we discussed with Canthan yesterday and Pumi before that. Michael says, hell. Okay, so you need, he says, heli. You need, for a giraffe to be captured, a helicopter, 12 guys, 2 buckies, and fucking long ropes. Yeah. Okay. Carl thinks that you need LeBron, Kobe, Jordan, and James to rugby tackle the giraffe, which is hilarious. Trump was one of the greatest American presidents. He delivered, says Giga Shack. Well, let me tell you something. It is not everyone's favorite admission. There are people who absolutely detest and cannot stand Donald Trump. And I think for many of those people, it's out of the question to ever accept that he was anything but the most evil, horrible, wicked, nasty person that has ever lived. So I'm not entirely sure that everyone will agree with that, but you're welcome to your opinion. And frankly, so are they, even though they might be wrong. Nico says, okay, here we go. He's an expert. He says, I've caught several giraffe too, the closest I've been to a panic attack. Jesus. You dart them, you put a harness over the head with a long rope. If that thing's not on the ground, there's no way you would reach up there. So it has to be darted. Put a harness over the head with long ropes, wake them up enough to walk them into a truck that is made for them. What kind of a truck is made for a giraffe? Jesus, we've got interesting people listening to this show. They've darted giraffe. I mean, I love this. Friday morning, and out of all the things we could be talking about, darting giraffe. It's beautiful. Okay, quick headline, because we need to look at a few of these before Ben comes online. the lettuce that I mentioned, here's the actual story. On October the 14th, the Daily Star asked who would last longer, Liz Truss or a wet lettuce. On on October the 20th, there was impromptu speech at 1:30 where Liz Truss said she was stepping down as prime minister. There would be another conservative leader, and the lettuce basically has become not the new prime minister, but the winner of this poll in the Daily Star. So they had a whole party for the lettuce yesterday. I watched it last night, which I suppose if you really don't like conservative politicians, you would have enjoyed this even more. But it was hilarious, and obviously, the Brits now have to find a new prime minister. So back to the drawing board, and no doubt this is going to be a very messy affair. And I remember just the other day we were joking about how Prince Charles, now King Charles, is this eccentric old man who said, "Oh dear, not you again," when she came in to see him for what do they call it, the prime minister's audience with the king or queen. And of course, he's right, because that would be the last time that she's in there, and he's not so eccentric after all. He was right. By the way, Ruth says, I remember a horrific story about those giraffes that died when they were transported. They hit bridges. Oh my God. I do remember that story. That was absolutely horrendous. They basically put them in trucks that were open on top, and then they drove them through, I think it was KZN somewhere, and they drove under these bridges on the highway, and basically these poor giraffe hit the bridges, and obviously you know what happened. I mean, it's just appalling. Nico says their head sticks out of the truck. Exactly. I remember that once the driver forgot about the giraffe and drove under a bridge. Okay, so same thing. Here's another story that I wanted to get to before Ben joins us. Apparently, the Silo Hotel in Cape Town, which I'm sure you've seen on social media, because that is exactly why it's in the news today. It has been named one of the most Instagrammable pools in the world. Apparently, the Silo Hotel at the V&A waterfront in Cape Town is one of Cape Town's newest highlights in travel. It has been built inside an old grain silo. It's a very beautiful building on the outside and in. Gets lots of attention. It's obviously, there's also a famous art gallery that's part of it now. But it has been listed the 5th most Instagrammable picture or place in South Africa and the world. Apparently, it's been listed in the top 50 destinations to visit after COVID-19. And there have been a lot of other awards too. But the most interesting one is that it is the most Instagrammable pool in the world. So it's at the top of the building. You have a view of the mountain on one side, a view of the ocean on the other, all the Cape Town things. And people say it's the most beautiful place in the world. So 1.5 million people from 60 countries took this survey. It's for Big Seven Travel, and they voted for the best places in the world. Apparently, the lists are then shared between media, and in the past, they have been very, very kind to South Africa. Obviously, the Kruger is a big part of that, notwithstanding a few giraffes that lose their heads on bridges. But the other place is Cape Town, and the Silo Hotel is the most Instagrammable pool in the world. Ben is here. Have you been to the Silo Hotel?
Not yet. I'm not that fancy, Gareth.
Apparently, it's very expensive to stay there.
And it's an old silo as well. Yeah, it's great. It's like repurposing something that was really shitty and making it something quite beautiful. I think that's called
it's called what?
Upcycling.
Huh. Yeah, I wish they would do that with the CBD of Joburg some more. There are a couple of places that have they've been doing that in, but not enough to make Joburg, worth a trip.
Sorry, Gareth. The horse is well and truly bolted in that, because it takes about 1 million people to want to make that thing upcycled, not 2 or 3 hipsters.
Paddle.
Yeah, I'm all in.
I mentioned at the beginning of the show that you wanted to talk about this. I was actually at the Wanderers on Wednesday night for a dinner, Tuesday night. Okay. And I saw the courts there and saw some people buggering around there. Have they officially opened?
Yeah, it's been the last 3 Fridays of my life have been on those very courts. It's so cool.
Nice.
And because paddle's kind of new, well, it is new, especially around certain
Yeah.
areas, everyone's kind of on the same level. So it's not like when you go to, like, a tennis club or a squash courts or whatever, and there's some dude that's been there for 20 years who, you're on his court at a certain time or he's much better. Everyone's learning, and it's such a cool vibe. It's under the floodlights. Yeah, Joburg this time of year is just so incredibly beautiful. So the last 3 Fridays I've done that, and I'm absolutely hooked. I've got funny shoes, I've got a paddle racket. Yeah, I'm just gonna keep going
So,
until I have my first injury.
so you have a very specific racket for this thing. They have a different size court to tennis, but what is it aside from like tennis on a smaller scale?
Slightly smaller balls. Basically, it's like formalizing beach bats because you got to have like close skills. It's not about power; it's
Mm.
about placement. And then it's like kind of like squash, so you can play it off the walls. You can bounce off the walls behind you, and it's played in doubles, so it's hugely social for
Oh,
like
cool.
an hour. Yeah.
Ben
I mean,
invited me, and I just what was that 2 3 weeks ago?
yeah, and you just said no. You were so rude. Not even no, thank you. It's just no. Like, okay, Grandpa, just trying to get you out of the house. Just trying to get you in the fresh air.
All right, so you've played it a couple of times now already. How long does a game last?
So you basically book an hour, or you can book an hour and a half, depending on how serious you are, and then you play like tennis. So tennis points, tennis sets.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's really great. Like as much as I love golf, and it still probably is the best game to play, it's a bit of a ball ache to organize, and it takes a lot of
Ugh,
time. So
yeah.
yeah, I think I'm trying to convert my golf friends into paddle friends, and then at least we can always play paddle and then occasionally play golf. That's the
Sure.
strategy.
Listen, I think a lot of people are looking for something to do that isn't too difficult to arrange, like you just said, that isn't too
Yeah.
complicated to play. You don't need skills to the extent that you do in golf or actual tennis, and lots of people don't want to play something that they obviously and automatically are shit at.
Yeah, I mean, look, you go with expectations with every sport, right? So if you go with expectations like it's playing a game of beach bats, then you'll have a
Mhm.
lot of fun. If you go with expectations like you are a tennis ace and you need to get this under your belt as well, it might be frustrating because the dimensions are all different. Like if you just consider like what a tennis court is, the lines, but then you put a
Mhm.
fence around the lines, that's exactly what it kind of looks like. So if you were good at tennis, if you were good at squash, it's probably better for you than if you were good at tennis.
So you had to buy a specific racket for this. What does it cost?
Rackets range from about 1,500 rand to about 8,000 rand from my
Eight
experience.
thousand rand. Jesus.
Yeah, it's like a
What
good
does a
night out.
tennis racket cost?
That's like a good night out for you.
Oh no, nonsense.
I've
What
I
is a
no idea what tennis costs.
yeah? I haven't bought a tennis racket since I was at high school, and I don't think they cost as much, or they must have cost probably less then than they do now. I suppose it's like bicycles. If you're a cyclist, you'll spend thousands of rands on a bike.
Yeah, but I mean, they got bigger problems than throwing money down the toilet.
That's stupid outfits. Absolutely. Stupid outfits, the inability to have normal conversations, populating coffee shops, taking up space on the road. There's lots of reasons to give
And
cyclists
just
shit.
and just being sweaty in civilized areas. That's something that they just never ever grasp.
Yeah. I just want
Yeah.
to go back to the Silo Hotel quickly because this is, first of all, Congo Chris says that the Silo has an incredibly beautiful bar. I have to go and see that. I haven't seen the bar. I've only seen it on social media and from the outside. But Carl also says, yeah, I'm sure when architects are studying hard at university, they all aspire to build a fucking Instagrammable building. What world are we living in? That, unfortunately, because people are chasing trends, I think that's what a lot of people would think is more important than designing a beautiful or functional building. I had this conversation with someone on Wednesday. I had some meetings, and in one of them, I was speaking to somebody, and you know how companies are chasing like we trended on Twitter for like a week because of something. I wonder if anyone can show that they sold more products or services because they trended on Twitter, for example. I don't think anyone can show that ever. It's like a fallacy. It's this attention economy, which has been converted into, social points, but I don't think it results in actual money being transferred. Do you?
Well, as part of your marketing mix, it's very difficult to pinpoint that one piece of communication is going to do something. It's like saying, how can you tell if TV ads translate to sales? As a brand or whatever, you have a marketing mix to touch various touch points. Yeah, but I'm a big fan of just trying to do things differently, because every time we advertise on social media, it's just money going out of the country. It's just more money
Correct.
going out of the country.
Yeah.
It's basically like digital Guptaring.
Yeah. Apparently the number is somewhere around 85% of all ad spend in South Africa goes straight to Facebook, Amazon, and Google. That means that local media are basically fighting over what, 15% of all the spend, which is crazy. And then, we wonder why local media is struggling and why so many people in the media business can't do investigative reporting or, quality journalism or any of that, because we don't spend any of our ad money on local media. And it's lazy too. I mean, it's like, rather go and buy, Google AdWords than actually invest in proper content. It's very annoying.
Yeah, it is, but it's also where the eyes are as well. It's a frustrating kind of catch-22, this whole thing. And it's just going back to the whole thing about having Instagrammable buildings. It doesn't mean that your architecture changes whatsoever. You make something amazing. If something is amazing, people will talk about it on Instagram, because that's what people talk. In the past, you would just have talkable buildings, but now talkable just means Instagram. So where people are.
I'm not going to argue with you. You're 100% right. Ancient Ether wants to go back quickly to paddle. I've watched a few games at Pirates. It looks very chilled, and the rallies are quite short. Staying low seems to increase your chances of a successful shot.
Yeah, it all depends on your skill level. If you're really shit at paddle, your rallies will be very quick. You'll serve, you'll get it out. Some guy might hit it in the net, and you change over. If you are very skilled, the rallies are quite something. But it's about just trying to keep the ball in play. When you first start, you want to hit the thing really hard, and then you hit it into the wall. So that's how the rallies stay short.
What have you got to say, Ben, about all the stuff in the news about Russia and the Ukraine? Do you have an opinion on this? Because it seems to be something everybody's talking about at the moment. Everyone has some pedestrian opinion about it. Everybody's like, oh, no, Putin this, Zelensky that, Biden, the UK. Even yesterday we were talking about it on the Burning Platform. And since it's everybody's area of expertise, because it's an obvious open topic for everybody to get into, have you got into any of these conversations lately?
Absolutely not.
Good.
I've already got like a top five, right?
What a good answer.
I've only got so much space. I've only got so much space, and the ongoing, because that's what it is, right? The ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine doesn't have. It's not in my top five. Sorry, I don't even know what the score is at the moment. I don't know who's playing. I don't. Sorry.
What are in your top five things?
Well, there's like mental health month, right? Which is where we are currently right now.
I saw you posted something about that actually that I wanted to talk about. So let's go.
Yeah, like if you look at any talking point nowadays, there's like one thing to talk about. Like we've lost this ability to discuss things because you have to be on this one side, or you're a bigot, or you're an asshole, or whatever. And things are becoming so absolutely single-minded, and it's just such a shame. Yeah. So when you hear mental health awareness month, what do you think of? Like, when that term comes out, what do you think about? You think about doom and gloom and people having a massive pity party with each other. That's all it's become. It's like, it's just such a sad thing, because you can work on your mental health just like anything else. But that doesn't get brought up in this month of awareness. It's all about pity parties, is people being vulnerable for likes. And what pisses me off the most about that is that there are some people who are chemically struggling with depression. They cannot get out of bed. They cannot function. They They hate themselves so much. They're unable to put two thoughts together to make them progressive. But then you get people who have just gone through a bit of a tough patch. But
Hmm.
hashtag mental health awareness. I'm really not okay right now. And a lot of the time you look at that and you think, shame, obviously you're not dealing with this thing very well. But I don't think it's mental health. I think it's just frustration. Maybe you're having a shit time. Maybe you're sexually frustrated. Maybe you're not stimulated at work. These are all things that have been bypassed and it's straight
Hmm.
to depression. I just think that we should actually have a checklist. It's like if you are claiming something, you've got to be accountable. So you can't just go hashtag mental health. I'm going to stay at home this week. Okay, so run me through why you're upset. Firstly, tell me, are you lifting weights? Are you eating healthy? What is your sleep pattern looking like?
Right.
Are you obsessed with Netflix, video games, or generally sitting on the couch?
Hmm.
Um, when was the last time you went into nature? There's got to be an
How much
accountability
time are you
checklist.
spending on your phone?
How much porn are you watching?
Yeah.
How much masturbation is going through your day-to-day things? So people aren't asking these questions. Like they're just not asking these questions. The default reaction as a human has to be, oh, shame, it takes some time. But that is just the worst thing you can ever tell someone because then they're going, okay, cool, I've been indulged. I'm
Yeah.
just going to stay here now because I've been given the attention that I seek. If you ask people questions, it's like, hang on a second, maybe I need to actually get back into what my lifestyle should be. And
Yeah.
people go back to this, yeah, but fuck lived experience, whatever. And it's something that I'm not exactly proud of, but I was very down during lockdown. I was like, it was a culmination of things that made me very down to the point where I can also claim depression. But it wasn't depression. It was just a shit time. I wasn't dealing with how shit that time was. And it was as simple as that. I was not depressed. I was just having a tough time. And I think with what you just said now, about 85% of ad revenue going into these international bottomless pits. What if you used to work in media sales? That's a shit time, right? So now like that's a cuck thing. So your career is making you upset. Your career is
Yeah.
making you frustrated. We have to have mental health checklists, I think. So you can't just say hashtag I'm depressed.
So I think that's such a good point. Your post though was like it's Mental Health Month, which is something we should all pay attention to.
Sure.
Um, but your post was, I'm okay. I feel good. You know, life is actually okay. I'm getting things done. I feel like I'm in a good place. It was so refreshing to see because it sounds like a boast. It sounds like, oh well,
It's
Ben's got this
you.
great life. But why
No,
must
fuck
we
no.
hear? Why must we constantly hear from people who are suffering if Mental Health Month is all about getting to a point where you're not?
Spot
So if
on.
you so if you are mentally in a good space, then share that, right?
But you've absolutely nailed it. It's seen as a boast because we have normalized the pity party so hard. We've normalized like the failure so hard. Hashtag my lived experience. It does seem like a boast. And that's actually, and I'll selfishly say this right now. I do want to boast more about what I'm doing in life because when you work really, really hard, why must you hide that? Why must you hide
Mm,
happiness? It's a strange, really strange thing. Like people are forced to hide their wealth, hide their happiness, hide the success, all because there's people out there who are sad, who are going through the most. Sorry, hashtag the most.
the
And that's
most.
bullshit. That's bullshit. If you're having a tough time, you should be able to, like, if you're in a pit of sinking sand and you're pretty much fucked, what do you need more of? More sinking sand or terra firma, an actual piece of ground to grab onto and pull
Right.
yourself towards? That's what you need, right? So, I mean, I can't
Yeah,
make it any simpler for you.
yeah, you don't want to spend even more time listening to stories that are going to make you feel even worse from
Yeah,
people whose lives are either as shit as yours or potentially a whole lot worse. And frankly, it doesn't help to compare yourself to anybody,
zero.
you know?
Absolutely not. Yeah, Gareth. So it's just become more and more pressing. Like I've noticed around people, in that
Yeah.
it's now this badge of honor, and we have spoken about this before. And I do appreciate that life is tough and some people are in ruts, absolute ruts, because I've been there. I'm not claiming it
Sure.
as like a badge of honor, but I've been there. I've physically been there. And looking back now, it seems incredibly trivial that I was there. It seems incredibly almost pathetic that I was there when there is so much you can do. And I know COVID was a really cuck time and we had a lot of things taken away, but there is so much more and there is happiness and we need to normalize that.
Don't you also feel that we're living in a time where nobody just suffers in dignified silence anymore? You have to share all of that like never before. And I briefly spoke about this one morning on the show, but we had a conversation about how these TV talk shows have all become about, and even this show sometimes, we'll have like comedians on, and they're there to make us laugh. And before like 5 minutes are up, I should have a rolling thing on the screen that just says, and now the comedian talks about their mental health problems. And then I swear to God, they go straight into it. I'm not only targeting comedians, but pretty much everybody is encouraged to share these horrible stories.
Yeah.
There's no more of this like, oh, okay. My grandfather never, ever spoke about the war. Never.
Which was a big thing. That was a big thing.
It was a fairly big thing. I would imagine at 18 years old to have to go to, North Africa and Italy and fight Mussolini and Hitler. Fairly big deal. Yeah. Lost a lot of his friends. Never spoke about it, ever. Now you've got people who had a bad day yesterday. I don't know, their boss sent them a thumbs up emoji and they were like hurt and horrified by that. Did you see that story in the news yesterday?
The actual story?
Yeah.
You serious?
I promise you, in the news yesterday, a story about how certain people, mostly Gen Z, millennials, have decided that certain emojis are a bit aggressive. Like if your boss sends you a thumbs up, it's like, okay, it's very aggressive. I feel very hard done by that you used the thumbs up. It's interpreted as being, what did they say it was? It was like it's someone being hostile. Hostile was the word they used.
Showing approval equals hostility. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, if that's a story, and I also believe that we shouldn't give attention to crackpots like this, but if that's a story, sure, then it's a slippery slope towards depression meaning nothing. Because if that makes you sad, if that makes you angry, then you can't tell me you're depressed, because that's, if you can't deal with that, you won't be able to deal with anything.
Well, anything. I mean, imagine being upset by the thumbs up.
No, I mean, yeah, it's people like that just glue their hands to the road and want to deface priceless artworks. And yeah, I just no. We've all got to step back and actually have a look at these things, and we can't keep indulging those people. They're just that is not even laughable. That's just pathetic.
Mm-hmm.
Microaggressions, I think they call them as well.
I also well, that's exactly what they called it in the article. I'm trying to find it right now, but I can't.
But even that term, micro, means extremely small, right? Aggression.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't be small aggressive. It's like you can't be tiny rich.
Yeah, correct. Ancient Ether says, I am consistently hostile, which I love. Okay. Yeah. Richard has just sent us 3 thumbs up. Oh, so God, that's going to traumatize us for the whole day. There's also something about how these emojis, which, I mean, they're basically modern hieroglyphs, right?
Well, that's where it's going, sure.
They have removed people's ability to communicate effectively. Like, people don't seem to be able to use words, which were the old way of communicating, because they'd rather use an emoji.
So it goes against engagement, right? Because engagement's a two-way thing. Emojis are, it's like tick box communication. Something's happening, but you're not making an engagement. There's no connection being made. So if you can't do that, you can't establish trust. You can't establish rapport. There's no real fondness involved. So yeah, it's a terrible kind of thing to rely on.
Carl says if you're upset by a thumbs up, then you need a puss clap. All right, let's talk about something else that's on your checklist for the day. Channeling your care to actual causes and not narratives. What are you talking about?
Yeah, so I thought this goes kind of hand in hand with people and the depression thing. Like you started by asking me about Russia and Ukraine, and I'm sorry, I don't actually give two shits because
I can tell.
It's too far. It's just too far, and there's just too many other things. I'm only capable of so much with sincerity. Now, I could be insincere and straight away go, yeah, if Zelensky just was given more support by the West, this could have ended a long time ago. I could have said something bullshit like that to you. But I don't want to because I don't feel like that. So I think deep down, people have genuine care and they want to make a genuine difference, but they don't know how to channel that. So what do? They just subscribe to whatever narratives out there. So we saw this, whatever it is, Black Lives Matters, Russia, Ukraine,
whatever the new thing is, yeah.
Yeah, the abortion question. There's all these different things that grab all the headlines. So people is like intrinsically they want popularity and they want approval. So if I'm really upset about the water situation in Johannesburg and it really fucks me off that there's like pipes leaking and this kind of stuff and it's a genuine infrastructural problem, that is a cause which I really it drives me mad. Okay, it drives me mad because it shows a lot of things that are like social decay. But if I go onto social media with that cause, no one's going to retweet that. No one's going to give me likes. No one's going to go, yeah, that's the best. I'm not going to change my social media avatar to like Rand Water. It's not a Ukrainian flag, is it? So I have care. I have a motive, but it doesn't wash with the rest of the world. So that's hard work, and I get no attention from it. So I'm thinking like, well, I'm going to give it my care because there's no attention attached to it. So in the attention economy, when someone comes out with, well, you must be double vaxxed, and it's like, yay, hashtag Team Pfizer. Suddenly you're part of this huge team, and then you wait for the next one because you've got this massive endorphin kind of rush. Because
it's belonging. I mean, there's a term for this. It's called compassion fatigue. That's what it is. Well, here's an interesting message look at this from Michelle. She says, I've suffered from crippling panic attacks for years. I haven't shared it with anyone on any platform until now. There are those of us who do keep things to ourselves.
That's rough. Yeah. I mean, I was never disputing that there are people going through actual really tough things. There is, yeah, no doubt.
But you can't care about everything.
Well, it's like compassion compliance is what I was kind of going with this, is that you've got compassion because unless you're an absolute monster or a Jeffrey Dahmer, we all have that. And we all have to express it. Otherwise, we're shown to be uncaring. Like Black Lives Matters, change your profile to a black box. You have to, right? Because there you got to have the compassion compliance there. This is how you're going to channel it. But then people are going, yeah, but I care about rhinos, or like I care about I care about homeless people.
You only have so much attention and love you can direct anywhere.
I know. So this again, I think this goes into that whole thing about people feeling depressed and down. It's like they're being shepherded into all these causes they don't care about, but they have to kind of show face, so to speak, and that must be draining as fuck. Absolutely, it's like Russia and Ukraine, yes, it's horrible what's happening there. It really is. But it shouldn't really affect you too much. It shouldn't in this world, this little realm that we live in the south of this planet. But if you opted in and you're stressed, pressured about that, it's going to be an extra weight on you.
All right, we are going to take a quick break. We'll be back in just a minute or two. Stick around. CliffCentral.com, Friday morning.
Your blood runs slow. Where life is washed away, child's castle drifting in the foam. My heart misses a beat. I reach out to you, my victim, drowned in the waters of forgetfulness, drowned in the waters of forgetfulness, drowned in the waters of forgetfulness.
Thomas Anders from Modern Talking knows they exist. Gary Kemp from Spandau Ballet once saw an email from them. Someone who works for Rick Astley liked their Instagram post. And Chesney Hawkes? Well, Chesney Hawkes was just really lovely. That 80s Show meets your favorite 80s artists. Hours of interviews right now on cliffcentral.com. It's the biggest collection of nostalgia since you cleaned your childhood bedroom. That 80s Show. New episodes every Friday, live or as a podcast on cliffcentral.com.
Good morning. If you've just joined us, it's Friday morning, cliffcentral.com. We've got lots to talk about today. Got Ben on the show. Later on, we're going to be joined by somebody who is, she was actually furious about this. I watched a couple of TikTok videos, and she's an actor and a singer and a songwriter, and she's actually quite successful in her own right, but she's become well known because she's in love with Trevor Noah, and she just wants him to notice her. And that's all she's known for now. She said she spent 16 years or whatever running this career, which has gone very well for her. And now if she Googles herself, all she sees is, TikToker who wants Trevor Noah to be her boyfriend. That's all she gets. So she was annoyed about that. I think you've got to be careful about Googling yourself. You're always going to find whatever's the top result is probably not something that you would choose to be the top result. It's like anybody is asked to describe themselves, and it's the worst question, and they do it in job interviews, CVs, all that kind of thing. They say, describe yourself in one sentence or in 10 words or whatever. And it's the most awful thing you can do to somebody, because we all go, oh, Jesus, out of all the things in my life, and I have to reduce this to 10 words. It's bound to be a disaster. And the same thing happens with Google. Anyway, got Ben with us this morning, and we'll chat to Elise a little bit later on. We've also got George on the show with the AutoTrader pod a bit later on too. We were talking about Mental Health Month, something which is all in the news at the moment. I mentioned Beyond Madness, which is our series that we have brought you in proud association with Adcock Ingram OTC, the sponsors of Brave. It's called Beyond Madness. If you haven't listened to it before, you need to pay attention to it. We had Professor Zabo on Wednesday, not because it's Mental Health Month, but because this series is really amazing, and it's been getting awards and lots of attention in the press and so on. And if you're going to talk about something, like Ben said just now, if you're going to care about something, if you're going to pretend to care about something, you may as well know something about it too. Otherwise, you're just virtue signaling, which we've got plenty of, and it's got no value anymore. I think that was the point of the whole. The point of the whole last fucking 10 minutes of the show was basically all this stuff is going on, but it's worthless. You'd be better off talking about something else.
Yeah, or just building yourself, so you never have to worry about your mental health, which is, again, for some people it could be impossible. But if you just keep working at that rather than worrying about other stuff, good step.
Yeah, I've always felt that so many of us, I've been responsible for this myself a couple of times, where you externalize problems instead of internalizing them.
Yeah,
you blame it on something else. You blame it on, I saw this girl on, oh God, I think it was serious. I struggled to imagine how, someone would put such a shit joke together, but she must have been serious. It's like this, I think she's an Indian girl, and she was on Instagram blaming white people for her fatness. So in other words, she's fat because of colonialism and imperialism and white people. It's an inability, that kind of person. And she's just a really bad example, but there are obviously much better examples of, people who've just externalized everything. You hear it often in this country because people love to complain, and they go, oh, well, the government, or my boss, or the McDonald's on the corner. It's McDonald's fault that I'm fat because they happen to be there. It's like you have to at some point realize internal problems, solving situations in your life have to come from you. You can't change other people. You're not going to change the universe. Start with you. If you can't even change your own behavior, what chance do you have of making other people change theirs?
Yeah. So I started listening to a really cool podcast series this week. Well, because I started this Instagram account where I just talk about things to kind of log my own journey with the stuff, and I've started following
I've
really
seen
interesting people.
You do a lot of videos in the car.
Yeah, it also just makes car journeys a little bit easier. I had these little inner monologues. But one of the guys that I follow, sorry, Congo Chris, these are jaguars, not dinosaurs on my shirt. One of the guys I follow is a guy called Papa Swirlio. Swirlnormous. He is one of the greatest people on the internet. He's one of the most beautiful men in the whole world. He's been training for the last 20 years. He's my age, but he's very swole. He's just in great shape, and he's basically
I cannot believe we reached the day on this show where we use the word swole in a normal sentence. Okay.
Yeah, but this dude, he's like really funny. Okay, so he's an absolute genius when it comes to health and fitness. But he does this show where he basically just breaks down the internet and people who give him comments about fatness and why people are fat. But this guy's humor, I mean, he reminds me if you were insanely jacked, and actually, yeah, he reminds me a lot about you if you were you in the health and fitness realm. So his entire show kind of almost sounds like your show from back in the day when you had all the sort of sound effects and stuff. It's so cool. I'm going to share it with you because it makes such interesting listening, because the guy's very, very, yeah, he does this kind of stuff. And then if someone says something stupid, he's got a sound clip which just goes, Matt Damon. And he has like this feature called "But My Thyroid," and it's just basically fat people bitching about how they would do everything in the world but my thyroid. And I've been absolutely loving listening to this guy's podcast and how he sort of tackles these things. So he would take someone like that person who said white people made me fat, and he'll just basically absolutely assassinate these people with logic and and why they are actually fat. It's hilarious. Swirlio. Look out for him.
Yeah, Ryan says swole. What a funny word. Yeah, it is kind of ridiculous, but there we go. Jordan Peterson, wah sniff, says parallel parking. Gareth, when are you getting Carl on the show? I reckon, yeah, you know what we've got to do? I was thinking about this the other day, and I actually spoke to the producers about it. We've got to start getting some of the regular listeners as co-hosts. What are you eating there, Ben?
Sorry, because I'm trying to put on weight at the moment, so I'm eating a lot more.
Were you trying to do 10 things while you're doing the show with us? I mean, really. Next thing you'll be doing push-ups while you're talking to us.
I know, Gareth, but I'm currently 85 kilograms. I'm trying to get to 87, and it is so difficult for me. So I have to eat at certain times to just try to fit in all the calories that I need on a day-to-day basis.
So you have to force yourself to eat.
I know, and everyone's like, "Oh, I wish I had that problem." Yes, but everyone's got different problems. Just own your own ones. I struggle to put on weight, so I'm doing greater volume in gym. And so like right now, I've got oats, protein powder, banana, almond flakes, blueberries. Yeah, and then I have eggs in like an hour and a half. Yeah, it's a lot.
Here's Michael's giving me some shit here, which maybe I deserve. He says, so what you were talking about is like Gareth before he went PC. I don't know that I've ever been PC. So I'm not going to get into the usual argument with, someone who's saying something about me, because I really am not upset by that at all, dude. But I don't think I've ever been PC. I may have become more mellow, and that may be a result of age. And it may also be because of what Ben was saying earlier. It's like you can't care about everything. I used to be so passionate about all the things in the news. I'd have an opinion on all the things. Right now, I find it very difficult to like drum up emotion, care, passion for things that are just, not interesting to me anymore. So if that's made me PC, cool. I'll take the criticism on the chin. But if it means that I've started to say things because I'm scared of being in trouble with someone, that's never happened. I think with fairness, you correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, because I know you listen often. But let me know if you think I've ever done the latter instead of the former. Then by all means, I deserve the shit.
Gareth, I will always naturally back you up because I know you very well. But you talk on a show every fucking day of your life. You know how much talking that is. You can't fight everything. You have to pick your battles. Like you really have to. And at the same time, you can't keep fighting the same thing either, because then people will say, oh, this guy just goes on about the same stuff all the time. So actually, screw you, Michael.
Derek says he worked for Carl, who listens to us, and will begrudgingly say he's hilarious. Begrudgingly, because I don't want it to go to his head. Yeah, I mean, listen, we've got some amazing people who listen to this show, and people who do really interesting things. And every time I meet someone who listens to the show, I'm always blown away by the fact that I always said I traded in, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of radio listeners for a lot less in terms of this podcast, but the quality of these people is way higher.
It is, because most people are just gluttons for anything, whether that be entertainment, food, information. So you've got to try to actually listen to the show. You've got to do something different.
In other words, more is not always more. That's what I think it comes from. Gareth would love to join one morning. Would be lovely to be part. Yeah, Ruth, we'll get you on one day. That'll be fun. Michael just says, screw you, Ben. So there we go. You didn't listen to anything you said. Screw you.
Fair enough.
Politically correct, this is interesting, is a phrase that was first used in the Soviet Union. It's akin to saying the party line. It's a nothing statement used as a sword and shield. Yeah, I've heard that before. The origins are actually, the etymology of this word is from Soviet Russia. Communists don't have any respect for the meaning of words, because they use pretty much whatever term is the softest term to describe terrible things, and they take words that actually mean something and convert them into nothing meanings. So this is part of what they do. They bastardize language to the point where you can't say anything because it all has to be approved by the state. I mean, that's the overall idea, is that words don't mean anything. Everything's a social construct. Nothing is true. There's no black or white. Everything's shades of gray. That's the kind of world that you live in when you don't want definitions, because one of the definitions might be inconvenient for you. That's kind of where it comes from. So, yeah, politically correct, not my favorite term either.
So speaking of getting people on the show, Congo Chris, I think that's another good option.
Mm-hmm.
Also, just to know where Congo Chris is. What does he do? That's another thing about these people who message in. Like, they're interesting. Like, what do they do? I've always wondered that.
Yeah. I mean, they might be very important people. In fact, they might be going by pseudonyms. Maybe one of them is actually Cyril Ramaphosa. Who knows? Tracy says the first season of House of the Dragon ends on Sunday. The season finale is sitting very pretty to be epic. Okay, so I will admit I have watched 2 TV shows this whole year. And they've both been on at the same time. The Lord of the Rings prequel, which is called Rings of Power, and House of the Dragon, which is this one that they're talking about now. It's the follow-on to Game of Thrones. Or actually, it's a prequel to that as well. Because they're such high-budget productions, and because they have been hyped up and marketed so hard, I thought, I've got to watch these things so that I can talk about them, because I knew they'd come up on the show, right? Normally, I can avoid shows that I don't like, and I haven't hated them, but I found they have been, there seems to be a kind of common pattern and genre to all entertainment at the moment. It has to be big special effects, superpowers, fantasy, like ordinary people doing normal human relations things have just gone completely out of the window. My favorite movie of all time is a movie with Anthony Hopkins and Emma Thompson I think it was made in the 90s. And it really is the most incredible, beautiful story. And it's not, they don't need any special effects. They don't need any any complicated or expensive budgets to make things happen. They didn't need, it was just beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. And I have to say, they don't make movies like that anymore. And I don't want to sound like one of these grumpy people. It's called Remains of the Day, by the way, if you're looking to watch the movie. Just the most beautiful story about these 2 people who are not important people, by the way. He plays a butler, and she's the housekeeper in this English country house back in, I think it must have been the 1930s. And it's just the most beautiful story of unrequited love. And I see all these TV shows and these movies now. If you're not a Marvel superhero movie or House of the Dragon or Rings of Power with, elves and dwarves and dragons, and people who can shoot fire out of their eyes and all that shit, then it just doesn't hit the spot for people anymore. I think that's a profound statement about where people are in terms of what they think is valuable about humans. They clearly think humans are inadequate. A lot of people who are watching these shows, whether you're conscious and aware of it or not, and again, I'm not saying these are not enjoyable things to watch. I love Tolkien. I think it's great stuff. I think he was an absolute genius, born in Bloemfontein, by the way. And I enjoyed watching them, but I can't help thinking like there's something about the way people are feeling about humanity at the moment, that there's something inadequate that's bothering them. And it worries me a little bit. Like, is this all that there is in entertainment now?
Well, yeah, I think you said it. It's safe because it's like putting money into something because you get a return, right? So you get the investment. And it's also safe because these mythical characters can't offend anybody. They don't have any historical oppression, like House of Dragons. People aren't going to try cancel them because of what they did because they don't exist.
Yeah, dragons can't be demonized more than you would imagine they already are. Like they're the symbol of darkness and nastiness and evil. So I suppose it's already done.
Yeah, I mean, the movie that you spoke about, if I remember correctly, I mean, you've got an old English manor, you've got Nazi Germany thrown in the mix there, you've got rich people. So that'll trigger so many people, that movie, even though it is beautifully simple.
But it's just a human story. It's like a beautiful love story. That's all. No one's making this stuff anymore. And if they are, it's certainly not getting the attention that it once did. So I'm not criticizing it. I'm not saying I have a problem with it. But, the world of entertainment right now is so dominated by these fantasy stories and these superhero narratives and these special effects, crazy, like everything is happening on the screen at once things that I wonder if good old storytelling has actually taken a back seat to like made up nonsense.
Yeah,
I know you went off the Star Wars train a while ago, and there are lots of people who are kind of, I think that many more people are watching this stuff than are not, but there are probably some people who've fallen off the wagon like you have.
No, I mean, I still think Star Wars is great, but my argument is that it's just not as good as what Dune is. So, I mean, they both have good places. The thing with people go off the wagon is that everyone's just so scared to offend and do things that could be dangerous. Everything has to be a calculated return. House of Dragons is like, okay, well, we've already had success with Game of Thrones. This is just the next step. They can't tell a fresh story. They can't do something that could be controversial because it's not going to get a return on investment.
This is hilarious. Someone said here, Ben, you're looking particularly handsome this morning. Yeah,
Thank you.
Ben in Littering. Okay, so I think that's from Holland because that was definitely Dutch. Franch was listening to us from South Sudan this morning. How the hell's that? That's like the youngest country in the world.
See,
you know that?
How do you end up in South Sudan? Like, I'm curious about this kind of stuff.
I want to know about that too. That's insane.
Because like the reason doesn't always have to be bad and dodgy. Like things haven't maybe gotten into his orifice over borders. He might be there for good reasons.
You mean he's been smuggling? Yeah, he's been smuggling drugs and weapons, probably.
What I'm saying is that doesn't have to be the case. That could be a much better story than cavity search has gone wrong. I mean, that's all I'm saying.
That's so great. Amir says, and I remember Martin Scorsese actually made exactly the comment. He probably did it a lot better than I did when I was explaining it just a moment ago. But Martin Scorsese said that these movies are equivalent to a theme park ride. And this is the guy who made some of the best movies of the last 50 years. So it's not just me. I didn't just make this up. I heard, much smarter people than me saying this stuff already. I wonder if everybody feels this way, but it's an interesting thing to talk about nonetheless. Conga Chris throws in this clanger. He says, the ultimate irony is that Tolkien wrote all of that stuff with the express intent of it not being metaphorical. Now it's being used as a metaphor all the time. He first wrote Lord of the Rings for his children. That's true. That is true. So, yeah, I think we can't help looking for meaning in places where it doesn't exist, and we can't help thinking that everything has to be meaningful, even when a lot of stuff is just, it's just a story. Sometimes it's just a beautiful story. I, for example, don't watch. I don't watch TV and movies with the intention of feeling something. If it happens, amazing. And if it's a really great story and it happens and I feel like I start laughing my backside off, or I start crying, because that can happen in a movie, then that's amazing. That's incredible that someone else can make you emote like that. But it's not the intention. You don't go into a movie like, okay, I'm definitely gonna love this. And that's silly. That's like sitting down for a meal and expecting it to be perfect, but the chef is someone you've never met before, and they're very thin and they don't look like they've ever made a good meal in their lives. I never trust a thin chef.
Gareth, I wanted to ask you, and then obviously we got caught up in other topics, but a week into post holiday and post going somewhere else, how do you feel like a lot better? Are you feeling like getting back to everyday life has made you feel a bit heavy again?
No, but I've had a really, really busy week this week.
Okay, so it seemed like you had a really great trip, and like
It was
culturally,
amazing.
Istanbul, like Turkey, is very different.
Well, I mean, I discussed this on Monday's show a little bit, so I don't want to go into it too much now. But Istanbul is incredible. It's a crossroads of culture. It's got enormous layers of history. I love a place that has, some kind of detailed and worthy story attached to it. And I'm not hard to please in terms of going somewhere and traveling. If you put me in a place that I've never been in before, where there are people and languages and culture and history that I've never encountered before, I love it. It's I'm like a sponge, just absorb that stuff. But yeah, I've been pretty busy since I got back. I mean, honestly, I've spent every day of this week at the office or in meetings, and it's good. I'm feeling very energetic, which I didn't feel before.
Yeah.
And I felt like I had a proper break, even though I spent, and you'd be pleased about this, Ben, I spent every day in Turkey walking. I must have done an average of 12 Ks a day, which is
Amazing.
not bad. Yeah. But have you ever been? Because your dad went there, and he was actually in the airport when they had that terror attack, as I recall.
Yeah, he was. He's done it a few times. We're actually gonna go in August. Obviously, with COVID and those kind of things, we're planning on doing it. So next August, definitely going to take a week and go do those things, because, like you, I love history, architecture. Yeah, I mean, I've wanted to go there for a long time, and also like the food. So I'm all in.
Yeah, I realized like I'm such a shit foodie. Like I just you can't ask me to review food. I'm just crap at it. I have no. I know what I like, and I eat the same shit over and over again. Even embarrassingly, I admitted that the best meal I had was at the airport on the way back. That's such a shit thing to say, but I promise you, it's not because Turkey makes shit food. It's because I'm not a good reviewer of that kind of stuff.
Where did you eat in the airport then?
No, in the lounge at the airport was very, very good. They had like this incredible. I don't know if you've ever been to that new airport in Istanbul, but if you have, if anyone's listening and they've been there, it's absolutely incredible. I mean, if you like high end stores and good food, then that airport, you walk for miles. By the way, I mean, just in the airport, you'll cover like a good 4 or 5 Ks, just walking from from when you come in until the gate that you depart from. But it's incredible. All right, a couple of other things. Someone says here, Rebellious Ruth says, Matt Smith made House of Dragons for me, else it would be boring as fuck. Yeah, he's the guy who was Philip in The Crown.
Yes,
and he's what's the goddamn guy's name? I think he's Damon in House of Dragons. Very good. And people are raving about him. Matt Damon. Twilight Zone radio stories are now available on YouTube. Oh wow, Twilight Zone. Jesus, that scared the hell out of me when I was a kid. Ugh, that monster on the wing of the plane. Jesus. I still have nightmares about that thing. Gareth, did you get the chance to see Istanbul's archaeological museums? It's about 5 minutes. Yeah, I did. I did that on the last day. Man, they have I still haven't posted this stuff on social media. I'll get to it eventually this weekend. They have 4 porphyry sarcophagi. Now, I'll explain what you can't just say that in a sentence and everyone goes, oh, okay, I know what a porphyry sarcophagus is. Oh, that's great. Tell me more. A porphyry is a kind of stone which they mined in a specific mine in Egypt, ancient Egypt, which was lost for many thousands of years. They rediscovered it probably about 30, 40 years ago. It's the only place in the world that the ancient Romans knew they could mine this particular stone. It's sort of a red, purple colored stone. It looks like marble, but it's purple obviously was the color of imperial Rome. They used to mine this stuff, and it was extremely expensive. It still is. They'd only make the most important things out of this stone, porphyry. It's spelled Porphyry. There are 4 of these. They're essentially coffins, sarcophagi they were found in Istanbul somewhere in the last sort of 60 years or so. I think maybe 1 or 2 of them were found a bit earlier than that. But they used to be the coffins of the Roman emperors who established Constantinople. So Justinian, Constantine, I think their wives, Theodora, the Empress Theodora, and there was someone else too I'm leaving out, Theodosius maybe. And basically these were probably the most important places to visit. These were the most important artifacts in Constantinople for many years. They were lost to history for some time, and they're actually standing outside in the rain. Like they're just outside the building, and people mostly walk past them. They don't even know what they are. They know signs to explain what they are. They're not in the museum, so people don't think they're important. And these things are just sitting out there in the garden. It was incredible to walk past them. So that's the kind of shit that gets me excited. So I know, super nerdy, but there we go.
But that's what makes travel amazing, right? Different layers. Some people only see fast food and nightclubs and brothels. You see architecture and history.
Please, I did the nightclubs and brothels and fast food as well. All right, Ben. Cheers. Have a lovely day. We'll speak to you soon.
Guys. Have a great weekend.
All right, it's exciting, and I'm thrilled to be welcoming to the show for the first time somebody who I watched some of her videos this week. She is awesome. She's also very pissed off that everybody is now only referring to her as the girl who wants to date Trevor Noah, because she's got a career as an actor, a writer, a poet, a singer, a songwriter too, which is the only thing I've ever been jealous of anybody in my life for, is songwriting. She's done 18 years of modeling and all kinds of other stuff too. But now, if you Google her, she comes up as the girl who wants to date Trevor Noah, which is very irritating. It's like those things that I was talking to Ben about just now, where you have to tell us about yourself in 5 words. It's like, what a horrible thing to do to anybody. But here she is. Her name is Elise Chizik, and she is all the way from LA. Hey, Elise, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
First of all, I just love your energy. I mean, normally if someone said to me, you've got to interview someone from TikTok who's like a social media personality or an influencer or something, I'd say, no, thank you very much. And the producers were telling me about you. And I was like, okay, I don't think I'm going to enjoy this. Then I watched your videos and like, what a delightful human being you are.
Oh my God, that's so nice. Thank you.
No, you are. You're so much fun. I couldn't help because I was watching these videos yesterday afternoon, just kind of going through stuff for the show for today. I was like, what a cool human being. You are, first of all, you're very funny. Second of all, you're like a natural in front of the camera. You're obviously very beautiful. And you have this just really fun attitude to stuff. Like you laugh at yourself. You clearly don't take anything too seriously. So why the hell hasn't Trevor Noah replied to you?
I don't know. I mean, listen, if I've made it this long and I'm still single, there must be something going on. Maybe Trevor Noah's not the only one. But but yeah, I don't know. I figured that like, he has to have like a social media manager or somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that he's seen my video. Like if you've seen them, I'm sure that he's seen them. You know what I mean?
I used to know Trevor pretty well. We actually did a couple of events together when he was still in South Africa. I believe he's leaving the Daily Show in the next few. He's going to have a little more time on his hands, so that might be good news for you as well. But
I was hoping for that.
He's really become. I mean, he's become one of, first of all, South Africa's most proud exports. Like people just absolutely love Trevor, and we're all really blown away by the success that he's had. But he's a good guy. I mean, the little bit of knowledge I have of him and all of his friends. I know some of his friends here in South Africa who talk to him virtually all the time. Such a good human too. I mean, he apparently is like one of those people who doesn't just talk the talk. He actually lives, a reasonably like clean life. He's a vegetarian or a vegan, one of the two. He works really hard. He's pretty much working 24/7 and is not afraid of work either. I just have such respect for the guy. So how did you first encounter him? On The Daily Show?
On The Daily Show, yeah. That was the first. And right away, I remember watching it when he like first joined the show, and like I immediately texted my mom and I was like, yo, look at the guy who's hosting The Daily Show now. He's so cute. But yeah, I mean, obviously, like he's, there are like lots of very attractive men in Hollywood or New York and television, whatever. But I read his book, Born a Crime. And it was while I was I was like writing a bunch for a book that I haven't put out yet. And the subject matter was so similar. And the way that he tells his story is so beautiful. And I just instantly fell in love with him, right? So, I mean, but he's like, everybody has celebrity crushes, But I'll say this, when I made that TikTok, it was 1:30 in the morning. I had like, I was like out with my friends hanging out, and I came back home. I was on TikTok, and like, I saw that clip, the one that I stitched in my first video about him. And I was like, oh my God, like it's rude. It is rude for him to be that good looking and that talented and that smart, and for him to not be my boyfriend. So I figured that I would just make this silly video. It was something that I don't get that many views on most of my videos on TikTok. I didn't before. And so I'm like, whatever, I'll just make this thing. I thought it was cute. I thought it was fun.
This thing blew up though. I mean, now, I was joking about how if you Google yourself, you did in the one video, you're like, this is all people know about me. Is this the video with the most hits that you've ever done?
Yeah, I mean, there was one of the videos, the video where I gave up because he was seen with Dua Lipa.
Oh, God.
The video is like a ton of views. I had when I first joined TikTok, I talk a lot about my modeling experience and like the hardships that like came with that, especially around like my own image of myself, my self-worth, body image, and stuff like that. And I made a video that was very, very popular right away. And then like views came down. I mean, this is how the algorithm works. Yeah. Like you might have like one video that pops off and then they don't show your stuff to anyone else. If you would have told me that night that I made that video that I was suddenly going to become someone that people knew in South Africa after that, I would be like, come on, that's ridiculous. There's no way.
Well, you've got and there are thousands of people from South Africa who are now following you. So just for those people who don't know you at all, just tell us a little bit. I gave a brief CV earlier of kind of.
It was really great. You did a really good job. Yeah, and that was actually very kind. Like I really appreciate it. It's very flattering too.
I didn't want to leave anything. No, well, I mean, you're someone who's done quite a lot in your life, and I mean, you live in a place where it's hugely competitive, right? I mean,
yes.
Anyone if you're an actor in Hollywood, like. Or in LA, just generally, you're like one of, 10 million people who are trying to be on the movies and TV shows and all the rest of it. But tell us about your career. Tell us about you. Where you from? Like family, background. How did you get into it? All of that stuff.
Oh my goodness. Well, short story. I was born in Los Angeles. My parents met out here. And they wanted to move us out of the city, and so they threw a dart at a map, and it landed closer to my dad's family than my mom's family, and that happened to be in Wisconsin. I don't know if you know anything about Wisconsin.
That's far from Hollywood.
So I grew up in this town of like 7,000 people, and like something I don't know if I talk about this a lot in my videos. I'm 6 feet tall, right? And so I'm 6 feet tall. I look the way that I do. I did not fit in there at all. But
just as a quick aside, as a tall girl, because one of my friends is also tall, and she says it's really hard to find guys who will date you because they all, if they're shorter than you, they feel immediately intimidated, so they won't even approach you. So they just cancel any hope of any relationship with any girl who's taller than them, and therefore it makes seriously, like it makes tall girls who obviously are in huge demand as models, and they've got this sort of statuesque presence, and mostly it's an advantage, but there is a disadvantage to dating when you're tall, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think I scare a lot of men. just in general. I've got a big personality and I take up a lot of space. But I will say this, that like, I mean, I appreciate a short king. The only issue is that a lot of times, like men who are shorter than me will try to overcompensate with like having a huge personality or like being almost like, just like too big for a room to like see, you know, like she's with me, I'm not with her, like that sort of thing. It becomes almost like competitive. It's kind of icky. I'm not really into that.
Oh wow! Just as an
mhm.
aside, one of the other videos I saw yesterday is you like basically saying that if someone sends you a DM and they have a girlfriend or a wife,
Mhm.
you will let the girlfriend or wife know.
I have done it.
Ooh,
Twice.
that is a bitchy move, but I mean, morally it's defensible, and I can't really fault you. It's
Listen,
just
I'm
like,
a woman of morals, truly.
sure, okay.
And yeah, if a man is like sliding into my DMs or like this has happened a handful of times where someone will just like everything on my Instagram to just flood it all the way through and then send me a DM that's just like, hey.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, cool. I'm
know
gonna check you out. And if in one of these cases, the most recent picture was of this man kissing his wife or his girlfriend. And I was like, I wonder how she would feel about that. So I slid into her DMs and I sent her a screenshot.
So basically, you don't even care what the result is. You just like throwing cats among the pigeons.
Oh,
so
no, not at all. I just want to make sure that everyone is transparent in this situation because the last thing that I need is like that kind of attention, you know? Oh, it's icky.
So what is it actually like being a model? Because you are judged entirely in your looks. Jobs are, it's really, you are evaluated every single day. You're basically given a number and you have to stand in a queue with a bunch of other girls for a role or for a photo or for a campaign or whatever it might be. And then it for most of those people, for 99% of them, it's going to go really badly. It's going to be a horrible experience. You don't get paid for every call out. You don't get paid for every audition. So it can be, and listen, I'm not going to sit here and say modeling is harder than working in a salt mine, but it is a really tough business. And, you know, when you do get the job, let's say you go through the audition, they love you, they put you in, you have to do crazy things like wake up at 3 a.m. and go kneel on a beach in a bikini. It's not, because they've got to get that moment just before the sun comes up or some shit like that.
Absolutely.
It's not as glamorous as people think it is.
The act of it, not necessarily
kind of
that
ridiculous,
glamorous.
right? It's actually kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. I've been doing it for a long time in a lot of different ways. Right now, I'm primarily doing like commercial modeling, which is actually, I mean, I find it really fun. Most of my auditions are really fun. I did have to do an audition where I had to do you know the chicken dance? Are you familiar with the chicken dance? I had to do the chicken dance and like sing a jingle along with it. And I was in the middle of doing this and I'm like, ha, ha, ha. And I like turned the camera off. I'm like, what am I doing with my life? I'm an adult woman and this is what I'm choosing to do with my life. And I'm not even getting paid for these moments, you know? But yeah, I mean, for a long time, the modeling industry was so much only about like the measurements and, like if you had a pimple, it was going to be a problem, you know? And I would say that the industry has changed a lot. It's not so much about that anymore. It's really about, I mean, they really want to see personality. They want to see unique people. And I think that's beautiful. I think that's a wonderful thing. Because you get so much more like diversity and a lot of more people can see themselves in an advertisement, which, I mean, in a capitalist world, it's necessary to keep people buying, I guess. But like, also just the representation I find is really great. And so, in like the things that I've been cast in recently, like in the past like 6 months or whatever, I found that like they're not worried. They're not like coming to me with a measuring tape and making sure that like I fit this exact thing. A lot of times, designers or stylists or whatever will have a lot of different options. And they're kind of dressing you as you are. And I like that a lot. That's really fun. That makes modeling more fun for me. It was not that when I started, though. I'll say that. It was not that way. Yeah.
There's a premium on authenticity, right? I mean, this is what people really love, is if they can figure out whether someone is is real and genuine, or whether they're just they're putting on a certain facade, a persona, and trying to be somebody. So let's just talk a little bit about South Africa, because you've become a big fan of South Africa, and that's probably one of the reasons why we wanted to get you on the show. But also, we tend to be pretty hard on ourselves here in South Africa. We don't think that we are a serious nation, and we've got like loads of problems and challenges in this country. We don't, we're not blind to these things. We're not hiding our heads in the sand. But from the outside looking in, and being someone who discovered South Africa because of Trevor Noah, what do you know about South Africa? Because you put together one video that I thought was really very sweet about like South African culture. You went and bought some, what was it, pap and mohodu or something?
Yes. Yes.
Oh my God. And you even cooked the stuff yourself.
I still have 5 pounds of tripe in my freezer right now. I'll say that. I got it all wrong. And it's so funny because it was just, it's one of those things. It's like, this is me. Okay. I tend to be very accident prone, and also sometimes just like jump before I know where the ground is. And so I just I went to this, it was a wholesale grocery, that I was just looking at places like, where can I buy tripe? And the kind that I got is not the kind that you guys have, because apparently what you have is not even, you can't get it here. No. Here it has to be fully like bleached and like super processed and all that, which I mean is probably like there may have been a reason for it. But I would say this, that like the way that I have been like received and the way that I have been treated is with so much love and kindness. Like I mean, in the US, yes, we listen. I don't know if you know this, but we have our problems.
I think we're all pretty wide awake to those problems. We talk about them more than you know.
It is wild here right now, and it's only getting more wild by the day. And a lot of just people being reasonable is not it's not really a thing. It's not a thing here.
And being nice to each other, people actually saying nice things to each other on social media. It's become such a rarity these days. You expect everything that you do on whether it's Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, whatever, you anticipate negative stuff, right? No matter what.
Absolutely. And it's because it's so easy to just sit back and be like, well, I know better. And something that I write about a lot, like my, especially like in 2020, I was writing a lot about this. It's like, we're so quick to point the finger at somebody else before we look at like the things that we've done ourselves. And there are a lot of reasons why I'm not, going out there telling people that they're living their lives wrong. It's because for a lot of my life, like I did a lot of really dumb stuff. And
me too. I was
like,
just really pleased that in my school and teen years that there wasn't social media. I mean, I'm old enough to have got away with that, because God forbid if I would have said things that would have just been, no one would ever want to talk to me again. Because we were kids, you do that, right?
Yes. And also, I mean, I will say that I am a product of my generation and of my time. And I mean, if you look at the movies and the TV and the jokes that were made in like in the 90s and in the early 2000s, it was, I mean, I would never say those things today. And I don't I've learned so much too. And I appreciate the things that I've learned. Sorry, my dog is snoring right now. Dexter is full on snoring.
What kind of dog do you have?
He's a pit shepherd and beagle mix. His name is Dexter. And I'm sorry, but he just honking away over there. Oh goodness. Anyway, but no, what I was saying is that the way that we're the way that we're able to look at things today, we're able to take other people's perspectives into consideration. And I take other people's perspectives into consideration all the time. I care a lot about that, because my perspective is very narrow only to what my experience is, unless I'm willing to listen to other people. And the things that I I'm very that I care a lot about, that I'm very passionate about, is primarily looking inward and just being like, okay, what is it, if this is making me so uncomfortable, or if I'm so upset at this person, first, did I do that thing? And is that why I'm upset? Is this like some internal shame that I'm carrying around with me? Or is this something that I was taught that I have now learned differently, or I've learned like a better way of doing something or of thinking, but this person is still where I once was. Is that why I'm like angry at this person? But it's unhelpful for people to just yell at each other all the time, you know?
I couldn't agree more. No, absolutely. And it also, what's the point of social media if all you're going to do is be outraged all the time? Your life's just going to be very, very sad and unhappy. So
Yes.
are you going to plan to come to South Africa at some point? Because
I really, really, really want to.
Like, I know that you're a model and an actress and all of those things, and it's a tough business, but your dollar is worth 18 of our rands. So you could get a lot for your dollar. If you come here, you could spend like a tiny amount of money in your currency and you'll end up with a lot here.
Yes. I really, really want to come out there, and I will. I am planning on it. I've got a very busy end of my year, a lot of traveling to see family and everything. But as soon as I can, I want to. Also, everyone keeps telling me about December, and apparently that's a whole thing there. Can you explain this December thing to me? Because all I've heard is just it's wild. That's it.
Yeah. So what happens here is it's our summer. Our summer is over. Everybody's on holiday because there's Christmas, there's New Year. People just basically get really, really drunk and stupid, and pretty much spend a week or two, or maybe more if they've got time or lots of money, just partying. December is, for anyone under the age of 40, it's the most fun thing in the whole world, because basically people just get unhinged and go crazy. And we've got songs about it, like, people talk about December Bos, which is like, and people go to places on the coast. They go to Cape Town, they go to Durban, they go on holiday, and then they just unwind and go.
I mean, that sounds awesome.
So South Africa, we have a lot of things that we can't really explain properly. Like there's certain things in isiZulu or in Afrikaans that if I said them to you and you asked me to explain them, I would feel really stupid even trying to explain them to you, because they don't make sense to anyone who hasn't lived in South Africa for a while. But I promise you, if you spent a week here, you'd very quickly pick up on the vibe.
Okay.
And the culture. Okay. People are. I think South Africans are really friendly people. By and large, we're resilient. We can handle pretty much anything. We love meeting people from all over the world. If you're nice to us, we're nice to you. It's pretty much like anywhere in the world. But I think you must come here and visit.
Oh, I would love that. I would love that so much. And yes, it is a part of my plan. I definitely want to come there. I definitely want to meet the people that have been so incredibly kind to me. Maybe, I'll consider December. I don't drink. So like it might be a little bit awkward for me. Everyone's just like wasted and raging in the street. But
yeah, sorry. Then there's no point. I'm just going to cancel this discussion right now. There's no point. There's nothing to talk about anymore. If you don't drink in South Africa, people think that is a lack of personality. That's all.
Oh no.
I don't know. No, we are one of the biggest binge drinking countries in the world. So that's not something to be proud of, but it's something that's true. And I think it's also because people live pretty tough lives generally, so they like to let go and let loose. But I suppose that would be true for anywhere, in the world as well.
I mean, truly.
What do you know about? Because there's so many cultures in this country. So, from an American point of view and someone who lives in LA, what do you kind of know that what are you interested in when it comes to South African culture? Maybe I can just help you figure that out.
Oh, okay. Well, first off, food. I think I've made that pretty clear. I want to eat. I like to eat. I'm an eater.
Okay. Do you eat meat?
I do. I have 5 pounds of tripe in my freezer. If I was a vegetarian, this would be a problem.
But that's not meat. Okay, that's not meat. We basically, what you guys call a barbecue. Across any South African culture, from old to young, every race, every language group, people love cooking meat on an open fire. So if you're Afrikaans, you call it a braai. If you're Zulu, you call it a chisanyama. If you're English, you call it a braai as well. And you just basically put a slab of meat on an open fire, and you will make friends with the South African. That's in terms of food. That's what you need to know. You don't have to cook tripe. It's horrible. It smells really bad. I've never had it. And I've lived in this country my whole life. You do not need. If your neighbors cook it, you want to throw up. So
Okay,
not
wait,
good.
you've never had it though?
No, hell no.
Oh my
Tried?
God. Come on, Gareth,
Oh hell no.
try
No.
it. Honestly,
I
it
said,
was really good.
I said to Ben just before you came on the show, I said,
Yes,
I'm
that's
not a
right.
foodie.
I heard it.
I'm not
Yes.
the guy to ask, but I can promise you, like, you don't have to be a foodie to know that meat on open flame is South
Okay.
Africans' favorite.
Wait, what? So
Yeah.
is there like a choice of meat? Is it like lamb? Is it like beef? Is it any?
It's mostly beef, and
Okay.
meat's much cheaper here than it is in the US. But
Okay.
there are people who say that Trevor Noah actually only left South Africa because he was vegetarian and he couldn't handle all the meat eating.
Do you think that it was the tripe that ruined it? Oh my gosh. The first thing that I did was I made tripe.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, and he looked at that and he probably went, ugh, not for
he
me.
went, ugh, she eats meat. Her house
Gross.
smells like tripe now. I have no desire for her. Oh man. I really shoot myself in the foot there, huh? Dang.
Yeah. You have much to learn. Don't worry. I look forward to seeing much more of your stuff. It's such a pleasure to meet you, and I really do hope you come to South Africa. And when you do come here, come and visit us. We'd love to catch up and see how much you've discovered about this place.
Yes, I would love that. Oh, thank you so much for having me on here. I appreciate you so much.
No worries, Elise. Thank you, and we will talk soon.
Yes, sounds good. Bye.
Amazing. That's Elise Chizik, and she is an actress and a model and a poet, singer, songwriter, a whole lot of things. And she's talking to us from LA. And I mean, God knows it's 3 a.m. over there now. So big thanks to her, or late at night. Either way, it's not exactly a convenient time. So good for her. We're going to have George Meany on with us in just a moment with the AutoTrader pod. Find out what Borge has to say this morning. And if you have a comment or a question, or you want to send us a voice note, you can do that too. By the way, the voice note number is, let me just check here again, because we haven't mentioned this for a while. So people have stopped sending voice notes. 071 783 6214. You can drop us a voice note anytime you like. Hey, Borge.
Hey, Gareth, welcome back.
Thanks, man. Nice to see you.
Yes, you too. I was listening to your travels with Ben. And,
yeah. Have you been to Istanbul?
No, I haven't actually. I've spent the last decade and a half traveling for business, which I don't know how much business gets done in Istanbul. Maybe you can tell me, but I've been traveling the first world countries. Fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're not really in the business of like Turkish carpets or that kind of thing. I understand.
Aladdin.
It's a really, listen, I'll say this, and people have said to me all my life, it's one of those places you have to go to. It's like a must do, place you have to see once in your life. So I think that's pretty amazing. And the fact that so many people go there and they feel changed by it in some way. I mean, that happens with people who go to, especially if they're religious or you're looking for some cultural significance somewhere. I just went to have a quick break, and it was 5 days, and it was amazing. Just as an ordinary tourist having a good time, I can only recommend it.
Wow. Well, welcome back. Glad you're here.
All right, look at this. Here is Ancient Ether, who says, Borge is my favorite guest since the departure of Gord. Definitely getting a like from me. And by the way, while we're on that, like and subscribe. Otherwise, the YouTube channel is a pointless exercise, and we will go back to just doing podcasts. So please like and subscribe. Otherwise, it drives the producers crazy. And I get people shouting at me in the office when I go in. So just do it. Okay. So, Borge, what's on the schedule for today?
Well, you know about the Hurricane Ian at the moment in Florida. I'm pretty sure
stunning.
that in some way, shape, or form. But an interesting thing that occurred with Hurricane Ian is it blew layers off a billboard. So that is a billboard from 1996 for a Dodge.
Wow. So are you telling me when they put these billboards up, they just put the new ad over old ones?
Well, it seems like in America they do. I mean, in South Africa, it doesn't look like they do that. I mean, you've seen the cloth that they put over these billboards. I've seen them take the old one down and put the new one up. In America, it looks like maybe that was the hard background surface, and then they decided to use the covers after that. But this was the original billboard from 1996.
1996. Jesus, I mean, that is a long time ago, and that is a very old Dodge Caravan in that ad.
It is indeed. So, so the billboard got its layers blown off and revealed the 1996 Dodge Caravan. And at the time, it was a very popular car. The car was one of a kind. Now it's got lots of competition, and it took off. And apparently, this Hurricane Ian has also destroyed about 50,000 cars in the United States.
Oh my God. I saw there was a bit of a flash flood in Alberton and Meyersdal on, what was it, Tuesday, when there was that little thunderstorm, the first rain of October and the summer. Apparently, people were driving in water that goes up to your window. Now, can a car handle that, George? If your engine gets wet, doesn't the car just seize up?
Well, the most important thing is not to get the air intake in the water, because that's when the car will get totally screwed. Is the air intake, and most of the time
pretty low, right? It's in the front.
It's in the bonnet, so it's probably, you can probably reference the height of your window sill. That's probably where about the air intake slightly lower than that. So if you get into water that is halfway up your door, you're starting to get into trouble territory.
And for most cars, I mean, not a lot of people are driving very, very new cars. I reckon if the water is halfway up your door, there's probably some water in the car.
Probably, because the seals are going to deteriorate over time. So, you're gonna.
Yeah, I heard you guys talking about this on the AutoTrader show the other day, the AutoTrader podcast. You were saying that a lot of cars in South Africa are very, very old.
That's very true. I mean, there's a study that shows that, or should I say, suggests that the average age of cars in South Africa are heading for about 9 years. And there is a law that's passed that says that if a car reaches 10 years, you have to have it checked out and made roadworthy, or check that it is roadworthy, every 2 years after that. That law is in place, but the minister has to set a start date, which he hasn't done. So that law is there, ready and waiting to go. And I'm assuming that the government is waiting for the average age of cars to slide even further. On AutoTrader, as a matter of fact, we don't see that. The average age of cars on AutoTrader is no more than about 5 years old.
5 years is not so bad.
It's not so bad, but it could be.
Do you think it's because we haven't had a proper rain yet? I mean, I've had like a bit of a scratchy throat all week, which is a bit weird, considering I got back from holiday and I felt pretty good. I've been training every day. Something scratchy in the throat here. There's something in the air.
I think there's something in the air, and this this frog keeps wanting to jump out. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Right, so excuse me.
In other words, are you saying that every car over 10 years should probably get roadworthy again, and that you probably shouldn't keep a car for that long if you can possibly help it?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of old classic cars that are beautiful, but we've got to acknowledge one thing. Technology advances all the time, which means that cars are getting safer and safer and safer as time goes on. So it stands to reason that older cars are going to be unsafer, not because of their age, but because of the technology, and then because of the age. So it is probably a good idea to not have a car older than 9-10 years.
Okay, cool. All right. Very good. Useful info. And one of the reasons you should be listening to the AutoTrader podcast every week. Make sure you don't miss it. What else you got for us today?
Well, there was this pumpkin patch, Gareth, in Temple, Texas, owned by the Robinson family.
I'm sorry. When you say pumpkin patch, I immediately think of the kids' TV show from the 90s and Woofles and what were they? Uncle Bill. And freckles and speckles. That's all. I'm
Speckles,
sorry. When you
yes.
said pumpkin patch, I almost stopped listening and went back into my childhood. Okay, so this is an actual patch of pumpkins in America. Okay.
Exactly. Actual patch of pumpkins that is a farm owned by the Robinson family. And 73 vehicles got set alight in the parking area of this pumpkin patch.
Look at that.
By somebody that chucked, apparently, the firefighters try to, they're very good at locating or establishing what the cause of the fire is. And apparently by someone's cigarette butt in the grass. So this was a grass field and got set alight. So, this is the fate of cars if a field gets set alight. So just be careful if you park on a patch of grass that is a little bit grown, maybe in winter, especially in Johannesburg.
Yeah, listen, one of the things that really bothers me is the way some people just throw cigarette butts out of cars. And a mate of mine was telling me the other day, he actually saw a woman doing this and drove up and parked next to her and then said to her, "What the hell is wrong with you? You just threw a cigarette butt out. It's, the grass is still dry." This was obviously before we'd had any rain at all. He said, "You could have started a fire. It's really gross to litter." And this woman started like shouting back at him. People won't even admit when they're wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really terrible. People in general throwing things out of their cars. I see it all the time, and you can't really do everything about every incident. I did see a funny video one day though, where somebody threw something out of a car. I don't know whether it was in South Africa or internationally, but somebody threw something out of a car, and this guy went to the trash can. Took stuff out, walked up to the guy's window and chucked it all inside his car because he had thrown something out of the freaking car.
Yeah, that's good. I like seeing things like that. I'm one of those people who would do it, but then this little voice in the back of my head says, "No, just be careful. You don't know whether that person isn't a complete psycho and they have a gun or a knife or God knows what else." It's one of the reasons I've become a little more careful about road rage, is that you don't know what you're dealing with. Someone might be having a really bad day and they have a Glock in their door. You don't necessarily need to end your life by arguing with someone in traffic. There are better things. There are better ways to die and better things to die for.
Don't end your life out of from a piece of rubbish. That's exactly right. And then very finally, Gareth, I thought I would, talking about getting stuck, tires. How do you repair a nail that has punctured your tire? Now, what I would suggest is, first of all, you need to keep one of these. You can buy them at Macro, Builder's Warehouse. It's a tire plug repair kit, and they're not very expensive. Keep it in your boot. Right. I would suggest that. But how do you actually fix a tire using one of these? The first thing is, when the nail is inside the tire is not going to go flat, and unless you pull that spike out. So obviously the first thing you need to do is pull it out. Next thing you need to do is ream the hole. The hole has to be, almost made into a better hole, for lack of a better word. You have to ream the hole, which is a little file thing that you get in this package. Ream the hole. And then the next thing is you use the spike with this gluey, icky thing that plugs the hole, and you shove it into that hole, pull the spike out, and the plug stays.
Just for those people who've just joined the podcast now, we are talking about fixing a tire. All right. I can well imagine somebody just coming on now and going, "What the hell is George talking about? That sounds appalling." Listen, that little rubber thing, they've done it to several tires of mine over the years. And the guys at the garage usually have this equipment as well. So they can often do it for you. And, you obviously have to pay them a little bit of a fee there or a bit of a tip, but they're more than happy usually to do it. I've seen them do it before. They are probably better equipped to do it than you in terms of experience as well. But what you're saying is true. You should have one of these in the boot. It happens all the time. People leave screws and nails lying around. They end up in tires. It's bound to happen at some point.
Exactly. So your useless piece of information, or useful piece of information for a Friday.
Very useful. And Congo Chris says, "I keep the aerosol foam that seals the leaks from the inside. It's usually good for 70 kilometers."
Yeah, Congo Chris, that does work in an emergency. I would definitely consider that. You've just got to be a little bit careful with that foam, and that is if you don't get driving quite quickly with the foam inside your tire, it does create a ball inside the tire, which then will create vibration because that stuff.
Oh no! So this thing will be rolling around inside the tire.
Well, no, it'll be stuck to one side. So the principle with those aerosols is you got to get going quite quickly so that the foam can spread around the outside of the tire so that there's this even kind of gooey glue.
Awesome. All right, George, thank you very much. As always, useful, informative, and do not miss the AutoTrader podcast, which is on cliffcentral.com right now or on all the podcast networks, all the platforms, Apple, Spotify, etc. We will see you on Monday. Have an excellent weekend, everybody. Happy